what a crazy summer that lays ahead here for the Giants. They've got to start getting some outside relief here, especially with a guy like Daniel Jones.
I like what I see out of Isaiah Hodgins.
Hodgins and Richie James in particular really, I think, showed they've got some stuff.
New York is busy. They're going to be busy this offseason because they've got a lot to do.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
The point that you and I were talking about, and this was, I think, an interesting narrative point, is that all four of the teams that lost this past weekend really entered into the offseason with some serious question marks at wide receiver. And they really, I think, for the most part, need a difference maker at that position. And I think that's something that you and I are simpatico with.
Yeah, I think that was it was a little glaringly obvious to me, I think. And of course, I'm thinking about wide receivers, so maybe everybody else wasn't the first thing you thought about. But let's go kind of team by team here, starting with the obvious one, the Giants. Look, we talked about Isaiah Hodgins on the show last week. I put up an Isaiah Hodgins reception perception profile. That's actually live on the site right now if you want to go check that out for all subscribers. Look, I like what I see out of Isaiah Hodgins, but I think in like a best case scenario, you're talking about a guy who might be a really nice number 3 receiver, maybe a low end number 2. Maybe somebody asked me like what his profile compares to, like who his profile compares to. I threw out like some of the best years of Corey Davis, sort of like as a career barometer for old Isaiah Hodgins there. Other than that, I mean, I don't think you're counting on basically anybody else. Like I said, Darius Slayton's a free agent. They are going to get Wan'Dale Robinson back off a torn ACL, but when is he going to be ready? He's probably a slot only player. Maybe you have Richie James is still in the building, but they're kind of, I think, of the 4 teams, they're certainly the most blank slate team of these groups here. And I think they could, again, the free agent pool is not great. So how do they go about attacking that position?
So let me ask you a question about the Giants, though. You listed off 3 players that I think are, solid. I think can be solid NFL contributors. You named Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Richie James. And Hodgins and Richie James in particular really, I think, showed they've got some stuff in the last month of the season, right? Okay, well now here's the problem for me though. All these guys to me profile as inside type players. Hodgins is a big body, but I think where he has done really well. And again, the maybe the profile will show different, but I just feel like he's done so much better against zone than man coverage. To me, he's not really a guy that can win a bunch of routes on the outside because he just doesn't have that speed. Okay, well, if that's the case, Richie James, I think, is a capable inside player as well. Okay, then we got Wan'Dale Robinson whenever he returns from his injury. He's, I think, profiles as an inside player. So, okay, so, I mean, golly, they've got to start getting some outside relief here, especially with a guy like Daniel Jones, who I would anticipate the Giants re-sign to a reasonable contract. But, the thing with Danny Dimes is, man, he has been throughout his career shown a real strong proclivity to throw a nice deep shot too. So the roster construction right now, I don't think plays to his strengths.
And New York is busy. They're going to be busy this offseason because they've got a lot to do. They've got to. And I thought it was interesting, sort of parsing the quotes from Joe Shane, their general manager, his postseason presser. I thought it sounded much more likely and much more sort of, I think Connor Hughes, who writes for the New York teams, I think he put it like he sounded a lot more warm and fuzzy about Daniel Jones than Saquon Barkley. And we know this is a nuts and bolts salary cap based guy in Joe Shane. And that was really why they brought, I think it was a big incentive for why they hired him, was because you want to get this guy in here and clean up a really messy cap situation where they had to cut James Bradbury, who of course made some big plays against them in the playoffs, to field an NFL team, just to sign the damn rookies last year. So I'm not surprised that he's not out there being like, you know what, Saquon, heart and soul of our team. Like we go as he goes. We're going to make sure he's back in the building. But what are they going to do about Saquon? What are they going to do about Daniel Jones? How do they bring those guys back? And, with your point on Hodgins, I do think he did some good work on the outside, but it is mostly on intermediate routes, dig routes, curl routes, outbreaking routes. not a lot of the quick separation on slant routes, not a lot of the downfield separation at all. And I do think Daniel Jones throws a great deep over route, and I think he could probably hit those 9 routes too. So yeah, to me, I think they are in the market for a big time X receiver. And again, it's just tough to find that. It's not that, well, let me tell you what, that guy's not available in free agency. So do you look for a trade? Is there somebody in the draft that you're looking later, in the first round that might be sort of that big outside the numbers vertical X receiver? Because I think that's probably I think if you have Hodgins as a guy who can move inside and out from the flanker slot position, you have all these slot options with maybe Richie James holds the fort down until Wan'Dale Robinson's healthy. Maybe they are a DeAndre Hopkins team, but that doesn't really necessarily fit with a team that's I still think is young and rebuilding. So
yeah,
even though they went to the playoffs, I don't know, maybe Hopkins is sort of the finishing move there. I don't know. I think they will be a team that sniffs around on some trade options for sure.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, we talk about Hodgins and Richie James. I mean, both guys are unrestricted free agents, man. They could be gone,
Hodgins is Hodgins is a exclusive rights free agent, right? Because he's so young in the league, or at least he's a restricted. I think Hodgins is the one I feel for sure he'll be back, because this is only his second season, right? And when you can't be an unrestricted free agent until I think you've had 4 years in the league, right?
Rights,
so he'll that AKA he ain't a free agent is what exclusive rights free agent means.
Right, but he'll certainly see a little bump in pay for him. He made $870,000 in 2023, so he'll see a nice little pay bump, I think, in 2024. But yeah, I mean, I think Richie James. I mean, I don't know. Does he sign for a very team friendly deal, or where does he go? Who knows what's going to be happening here, but yeah, what a crazy summer that lays ahead here for the Giants. No, I mean, what are they going to do with Saquon, as you mentioned? What are they going to do with these two, gems in the rough that they found in Hodgins and Richie James, who again, I think can play at the NFL level, but do they fit into what the Giants want to get done? They need to get team speed. They need to get team speed in the absolute worst way possible, man. And I'll tell you what, man, I was impressed with what they did defensively this year too. Look, we talk about all the things that Brian Daboll did offensively, man, but you know what, man, what Wink did for the defensive side, it's a unit that was not that good. I mean, really, from a talent perspective, they had, at best, B- talent level. And I thought they played well above their talent level this year. And so I think the coaching staff just did a bang-up job with that team.
Yeah, it was a great coaching staff. And do they lose Mike Kafka to a head coaching job? Mike Kafka is a guy who's interviewing with the Panthers. I know at least he's interviewing with Carolina, and he could be a guy that gets plucked. It's interesting, too, that this is off topic, but the Giants, deep backup quarterback Davis Webb is expressing this today that he wants to get into coaching, and I kind of think this might be a new trend that emerges, because you think of Kafka as he's not one, I'm talking about the backups who aren't like Chase Daniel, who could just coast forever in the league because he had a couple of good games and just make money, but the guys like Kevin O'Connell's another one, Mike Kafka's another one, Kellen Moore was another one. Those guys got into coaching quickly. I literally think Kellen Moore went from the practice field to coaching for the Dallas Cowboys. So I think that might be a new trend that emerges, just speaking on Kafka, these guys that are going to fall out of the league. Let me get into coaching early so that I can be a head coach by the time I'm 36 or 35, like O'Connell and Kafka probably will eventually fall in that footsteps. But yeah, busy off season for the Giants. That's for sure.